As we continue in the conversation between the prophet Habakkuk and the Lord, Habakkuk replies then asking, how long are you going to be silent? And describes the terrible things that are going on. And then in the beginning of chapter 2, Habakkuk basically says, I'm going to stand at my watchpost, station myself on the rampart, and I'm going to watch and see what the Lord will say to me. And in part of the Lord's response is our verse for the day in verse 3, where the Lord says, for there is still a vision for the appointed time. It speaks of the end and does not lie. If it seems to tarry, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. Part of the ancient struggle that we see the prophet having, that many of us have today, is, gee, God, we really wish you would speak, and why are you silent in the midst of what's going on? And that's why Habakkuk says, I'm going to stand just like somebody standing guard on the rampart of a fortress and look and wait and straining the eyes to see, what is God going to say? And God's response is, I'm still here. There is still a vision. And the vision, like all visions, is pointed towards the future. It speaks of the end, as God says. There is still a vision, and it's one you can rely on. It does not lie. It is truthful. But then you have this phrase, if it seems to tarry. And how often in life, when we're praying and waiting and looking and hoping for God to speak, to act, to do something, almost all the time, it seems to take longer than we would want. And that waiting can be very difficult. And that's what the Lord tells Habakkuk he has to do. He has to wait. He has to wait for it. But God assures that it will surely come. Boy, that's a really hard thing when you're in the midst of the battle and struggling and waiting and hoping that relief will come. I think of Tolkien's wonderful series on the Lord of the Rings. And for those of you who have either read the books or seen the movies that came out, it's hard to believe the first one did 21 years ago now. You may recall that there's a scene where Gandalf, the wizard, had told them, the Fellowship, look for me, to the east when the sun rises on this particular day. And they're in a hard battle, and it's a struggle, and things aren't going great, and you don't know if the Fellowship is going to make it. And then Gandalf appears with the riders of Rohan and comes streaming down. And that feeling of looking and waiting and relief when they come, I think, is what Habakkuk is looking for and what we are often waiting for. There is a vision. There is still hope for the future, the Lord says to you and to me and to our world. And if it tarries, we have to wait for it. And we wait for it in faith that it will come.